We're now joined by the former governor of Alaska and Fox News contributor Sarah Palin. Governor, thanks so much for being with us this evening.
As always, thank you, Judge.
Okay, Governor, on Friday, Netanyahu rejected President Obama's plan outright to have Israel move its borders back to the pre-1967. What's your take on this?
I was happy, to tell you the truth, that Prime Minister Netanyahu really stood his ground and tried to explain to our president that we are flirting with disaster here and not defending Israel. And anyone who studies history, studies the Old Testament, studies geography, and understands that Israel now is surrounded by enemies at all times, it should be now that America takes a stand in defending our friends in Israel. And no, to tell Israel that now they have to pull back from their homeland, that they have to concede even more, and that they have to negotiate with terrorists, with Hamas, having been a part now, joining in the unity government under Palestinian Authority. We're flirting with disaster under President Obama's very clouded, very murky foreign policy as it applies to Israel.
When the president talks about 1967 borders, it's basically ceding East Jerusalem, which is the holiest part of Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, the Wailing Wall, and to cede it to a Palestinian state is something that even he said, the president said in 2008, that Jerusalem should not be divided. So what do you think is causing his change of opinion here?
Unfortunately, his change of opinion is making an even more volatile situation even worse, even more dangerous for America and obviously for Israel when he says now that Jerusalem should be divided. Yeah, he had said that it shouldn't be divided, and yet since he said that, Hamas now, the terrorist group, has entered the picture. And as I say now, more than ever, we should be standing strong with Israel and saying, no, you don't have to divide Jerusalem. You don't have to divide your capital city.
Israel is the strongest ally that we have in the Middle East. And the whole concept of the president saying, you know, there should be a swap. Well, swap what? If you're giving the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem to the Palestinians, what do they give? I mean, Israel has absorbed all the Jewish refugees. The Arab states are not absorbing the Palestinians. I mean, and how could Israel possibly negotiate with Hamas?
America is on the wrong side on this issue, and that's what the Prime Minister on Friday tried to explain to our president, even though our president tried to lecture Prime Minister Netanyahu on the meaning of the importance of peace. Netanyahu does not need to be lectured by President Obama on the importance of peace. He understands it. So, yeah, we're on the wrong side of history if we continue to go down this road. What we need to do, though, Judge, is we, the people, need to rise up, saying we'll take a stand for Israel. We'll be on their side, even if I'm going to call him our temporary leader, because my goal is to make sure that President Obama is not reelected in 2012 so that we don't have to continue to go down this path of this foreign policy that really makes no sense. And in this particular case, is so obviously wrong because we're telling our friends to negotiate with Hamas, with terrorists who have already said, Hamas has said, we'll never negotiate with Israel. So until President Obama is replaced by a president who understands the importance of treating our friends right and being strong against our enemies, until that happens, it's we the people who have to rise up and make sure that Israel knows they have friends here.
And you know what's interesting about this is that Netanyahu yesterday made it so clear that Israel sees Hamas as the equivalent of how we saw Al-Qaeda or how we see Al-Qaeda. Right. But let me move on to something. Look, the president in this speech said that he was willing to forgive Egypt $1 billion that they owe us, all right? And can we even afford to forgive $1 billion in debt that Egypt owes us? And aren't we teetering on bankruptcy ourselves?
Bingo. That's the $14 trillion question right there, judges. Why is it that we're borrowing money from foreign countries to give and loan money to foreign countries? No, we don't have these dollars, these billion bucks to be forgiving Egypt. And Egypt, of course, is a whole nother story here when we consider that, you know, we helped oust Mubarak verbally, if by no other means. We wanted to make sure that he was gone. And now we're wondering, well, who's replacing him? Could it be radical Muslim fundamentalists in the Muslim Brotherhood will be taking their place? Why is it that we would ever consider forgiving $1 billion debt that they have for America right now? It makes absolutely no sense.
And, you know, Governor, I mean, when you think about it, I mean, we gave Japan a great deal of help after the earthquake and the tsunami. We owe Japan $800 billion. They didn't turn around and say to us, hey, by the way, America, we're going to forgive $1 billion of debt that you owe us. But that, I guess, is for another discussion. But let's turn national now in terms of the long and growing list of unions and insurers who are seeking Obamacare waivers. Why do you think so many are seeking waivers?
Because the Obamacare program is bad for our economy, and it's bad for health care coverage that is needed by so many Americans, and that's why people are requesting these exemptions. And remember, AARP now has been granted an exception, and the state of Nevada and 2 other states too. It's because these folks are realizing that even though they were proponents of Obamacare, they understand now that Obamacare is not good and does not contain costs, and it's unaffordable, and it's a job killer. So now they're the ones, even though they had promoted it, they're asking for the exemption. So now the question is, who's going to investigate this waiver panel, whomever it is who is deciding who gets the waivers and who doesn't? Where is the transparency in the Obama administration to allow the people to understand what's the criteria, who's been requesting waivers, who's been rejected in their request? There needs to be an investigation.
Well, clearly the person to do that is Darrell Issa. And would you call upon him and his committee on oversight and government reform to investigate this? And especially when you throw into the equation the fact that 20% of the waivers, I believe, within a short period of time were in Nancy Pelosi's district, the same person who said, by the way, you're going to have to read the bill to see what's in it. And she's giving waivers, or the administration is.
Yeah, and isn't that ironic that out of the hundreds of congressmen that we have, that 20% of the most recent waivers were given to one individual, very powerful congresswoman's district? I think it's more than irony. And yes, I would like to see Issa and others investigate this. And if there isn't an investigation, then that is proof that we are not serious about getting to the bottom of the problems of Obamacare, the problems that are inherent in what I say is some potential corruption in the whole waiver process. If there's not an investigation, then I will doubt that our Congress is serious about getting to the bottom of it.
All right, Governor, stay with us. We want to get your take on the 2012 GOP contenders next. We're back with former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. All right, Governor, Herman Cain has officially announced that he is running for president. What do you think of him?
I like Herman Cain. Even hearing his name, I get kind of excited thinking about what it is that he has to offer in the discourse and the debate. He's not a politician. I think that's why I like him so much. He's a businessman, very successful. He knows how to make a payroll. He knows how to provide the benefits for his employees in order to keep those employees and make them productive. He knows how to make a really good pizza. That's enough in my book to be looking forward to shaking his hand and saying, glad he's in the fray.
You know, it was interesting watching the debate, and a lot of people saw him for the first time, and he certainly, I think, had a lot of enthusiasm. He made sense, and I think that a lot of people agree with you on that, Governor. Now, let's move on to another contender for 2012, and that's Newt Gingrich. Now, Newt had a bad week. Does he recover?
Well, he does recover. You know, that's a blip on the radar screen when you consider that it's a year and a half out still, the general election anyway. So blip on the radar screen when you consider that a day or two is bad and rough in a campaign. But it's also, unfortunately, telling that perhaps Newt Gingrich does believe in government mandating, forcing the American citizen to have to purchase something that perhaps we don't want to or can't afford to purchase. And in this case, it was health care. You know, I Personally, I don't like government telling me or anybody else what to do, what to purchase. I don't like that violation of the Commerce Clause. I don't like government saying that a motorcycle driver has to wear a helmet. I say, wear a helmet, you need to, you're crazy if you don't. But I don't like government telling me that I have to do such a thing. Americans are freedom-loving, smart, common-sense people. We, I believe, can make better decisions for ourselves than politicians can make. Now, when it comes to big picture issues now, like medical coverage, I don't want government telling me or anybody else what we have to purchase according to some politicians' priorities.
Well, and you know, I think that certainly there is a good constitutional argument, as you well know, to be made for the idea of forcing Americans to buy something and engage in economic activity. But you know, Governor, one of the things that you talked about in regarding Newt this week was the fact that the, as you call it, the lamestream media was throwing some gotcha questions at him. Do you really think that's what happened?
Well, I think that that's what happens in pretty much any conservatives interview that they are conducting with those on the left in that conventional media forum that you see on the Sunday morning talk shows. So we just have to be ready for it. We have to be prepared, not shy away from it, but not participate in it either if we know that a reporter perhaps is going to be unfair.
But you know, at the same time, Governor, you and I mean, you look at someone like Newt Gingrich, and he's been on Meet the Press 35 times. I mean, this guy is a seasoned politician. I mean, he can, he can throw back an answer better than most of us. And the idea of his basically buckling, does that question or put a question in your mind as to whether or not he's got the stamina to pretty much abide by his convictions, or is he going to buckle when people criticize him?
Well, I'm not a fan of anybody flip-flopping around on their issues, whether, one day they're supporting a government mandate on health care and the next day they're calling somebody who opposes that mandate a social engineer. I don't like the idea of a politician flip-flopping. On the other hand, a little bit of grace there provided Newt Gingrich and anybody else is when you're under the hot spotlight, whether it's 35 times or your first time, it is kind of difficult once in a while when somebody's asking you a question, your mind's spinning, to articulate what it is concisely, that exact point you want to make. So, he's human. We're all human. We all screw up.
Ain't that the truth? All right. Now, even though you have said, Governor, that you still have the fire in your belly, could the media attacks persuade you not to run in 2012?
Nope, it's not going to be the media. After 20 years of being involved in politics from the local level on up to the national level, the media scrutiny, I'm going to say some of the double standard and unfairness thrown a conservative's way through the media, I'm kind of used to that. The thing that would dissuade me, to be perfectly honest with you, Judge, is the effect on my family, on my young kids, especially on my parents, on my siblings. They've gone through a lot with me these last few years, especially. I want to protect them. I want them to enjoy what it is that we have to offer if we're able to forward our name in the name of service to America. I don't want them to be miserable through it.
And you know what, Governor, there's no question. I mean, not only are members of your family attacked, and I've run for office and know it very well, certainly not on the scale that you have, but they are in pain for the pain that they think that you're in. And so it's a double whammy for them as well. But let me move on to the last kind of a fun question, Governor. It turns out that Newt Gingrich's cell of ringtone is Dancing Queen. Now, I'm going to play it now. I got it ready here.
Okay.
Okay, now, I'm curious. What's your ringtone?
It's just a really boring one. It's just a general app that's out there that anybody can. But I was just thinking about, well, what song would I choose if I had to choose? And I think today, the mood that I am in today and the venue that I am in, I'd pick Gretchen Wilson's Redneck Woman, and I'd be proud to have that as my ringtone.
Fantastic. Great song, and I love country music. Governor, we love having you on. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.